Staying with China, they're facing a new trade war too, once again with the United States. It all started with Joe Biden's announcement this week. He increased tariffs on Chinese imports, like 100% tariff on Chinese EVs, 50% on solar panels, and 25% on steel and aluminium. Now, Biden's logic here is quite simple. He wants to help America's domestic industry, but let's be clear, what Joe Biden calls help is actually protectionism. And the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, agrees. They've criticized Biden's tariffs. They say such restrictions can fragment the global economy.
In a stunning and aggressive move that is already sending shockwaves through the global economy, the United States has just pulled the trigger on a massive new wave of tariffs that have the potential to devastate key Chinese industries. Let's not mince words here. This is nothing less than an all-out economic assault on China, with the U.S. aiming at everything from electric vehicles, EVs, to semiconductors. As geopolitical tensions rise to new heights, these tariffs could reshape the future of not just U.S.-China relations, but the entire global market. This isn't a minor skirmish over trade imbalances. This is about dominance, control, and who will emerge as the top dog in critical industries that will define the next century. And with the U.S. slapping a jaw-dropping 100% tariff on Chinese EVs and 50% duties on solar cells and semiconductors, there's no question about it, things are about to get ugly. Stay with us until the end as we break down this tariff bombshell and what it means for the future of global trade, jobs, and the growing battle for economic supremacy. Welcome to the new world of tariff warfare. Let's dive into the details. On September 27th, the United States is set to impose crippling tariffs that will make it almost impossible for Chinese electric vehicles to enter the American market. Why? Because the U.S. government, under pressure from its domestic industries, is desperate to reduce its reliance on China for years. The Chinese have flooded the market with overproduced goods, benefiting from state-driven subsidies that artificially lower the cost of their products. In response, the Biden administration, echoing the hardline stance of former President Donald Trump, is throwing the gauntlet down with a 100% duty on Chinese electric vehicles. Yes, you read that correctly, a 100% tariff. This isn't just a small tweak to existing trade policies. This is designed to make Chinese EVs prohibitively expensive, thereby protecting U.S. manufacturers who have struggled to compete with the cheaper Chinese alternatives. But the tariffs don't stop there. The U.S. is also imposing a 50% tariff on solar cells, a key component in the renewable energy revolution. Despite the green energy push, the U.S. government is sending a clear message: China's overproduction of solar components, fueled by state-backed incentives, will no longer be tolerated. This could cripple Chinese solar companies that are heavily dependent on the U.S. market. And let's not forget about steel, aluminum, and EV batteries. These materials are critical to modern infrastructure and electric vehicle production. The U.S. has slapped a 25% tariff on imports from China, making it clear that they're not backing down. But why stop there? The U.S. government is even going after the tech industry by imposing a 50% import duty on semiconductors, particularly those used in the production of polysilicon solar panels and silicon wafers, beginning next year. U.S. targets critical EV components. Is this the end of Chinese EV dominance? If you think this is just about punishing China, think again. The administration is strategically aiming at China's Achilles heel, critical materials that are the lifeblood of the electric vehicle industry. In particular, the U.S. has kept its 25% tariff on lithium-ion batteries, the very heart of electric vehicles. These high tariffs are designed to reduce America's dependence on Chinese minerals, such as graphite, which are essential for EV production.
With respect to the tariffs, our view is that the U.S. Would be better served by maintaining open trade policies that have been vital to its economic performance. We also encourage the U.S. and China to work together toward a solution that addresses the underlying concerns that have exacerbated trade tensions between the two countries. And more broadly, we urge all countries to work within the multilateral framework to resolve their differences.
I would like to stress that such unilateral and protectionist actions are contrary to the trend of the times and are bound to be crushed by the wheels of history. At this critical time of global economic recovery, the international community should warn the United States not to cause new troubles for the world.
The strategy is twofold. On one hand, it cripples China's overproduction of EV components, and on the other, it attempts to force U.S. manufacturers to source these materials elsewhere or develop their domestic supply chains. While industry experts have raised concerns about the availability of these critical minerals, the U.S. Trade Representative, Lael Brainerd, dismissed these concerns. She described the tariffs as tough but targeted, aimed at cutting off China's state-driven subsidies. This aggressive stance sends a loud and clear message. The U.S. will not allow China to dominate the global EV market. Limited exceptions, but no mercy for medical supplies. Interestingly, not everything is subject to these harsh tariffs. Some exceptions have been made for U.S. port operators, who rely on ship-to-shore cranes, and the medical industry, which still depends on Chinese-made products. However, even here, the U.S. is not pulling any punches. The tariffs on medical face masks and surgical gloves have been increased to 50%, up from the initially proposed 25%. And here's where things get even more controversial. The U.S. has granted a brief delay before the tariffs on medical supplies come into effect, allowing companies to transition to non-Chinese suppliers. This delay, however, isn't out of goodwill, it's simply a cold.
A few things to note here. One, there is politics at play. Biden's foreign policy is looking increasingly weak, so tariffs on China is a muscular move. Even Donald Trump had promised the same. Plus, the U.S. auto industry is very influential, especially in the state of Michigan. It employs around 180,000 workers. And why is Michigan important? Because it's a swing state. Donald Trump is leading there by 7 points, so Joe Biden is trying to woo the auto industry by slapping tariffs on Chinese cars. That's the first point, the politics. Secondly, China does dabble in illegal subsidies, and that is a fact. Their fishery industry gets subsidies, their EV makers get subsidies, so do their steel producers. It's pretty well documented. Now, subsidies are not illegal per se, but if they distort the market, then they are. Again, let's look at an example. At the same $10,000 car, the US says these cars actually cost a lot more, but because of the subsidies, they're sold for cheap. And yes, this is unfair. It is against the rules of free trade. But here's the fun part. The US also does something similar. Let's say you buy an EV that is made in the US or Canada, you get tax cuts. How much? Up to $7,500, you get that cut. But if you buy an EV that is made in Europe or Asia, you will not get that tax cut. How is this different from a subsidy? Honestly, it's not. And China complained about this in the month of March. They filed a case at the World Trade Organization.
Calculated move to ensure the U.S. doesn't shoot itself in the foot by causing shortages in critical medical supplies. In short, the message to U.S. businesses is clear: make the switch now, because these tariffs are here to stay. Election year politics, tough on China or tough on American jobs? Of course, we can't talk about these tariffs without addressing the elephant in the room, the upcoming U.S. presidential election. Both Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are jostling for position, each trying to prove that they're tougher on China than the other. And what better way to do that than with tariffs that play directly to voters in key manufacturing states? Both candidates are vying for support from auto manufacturing and steel-producing states. Trump, in particular, has proposed a whopping 60% tariff on all Chinese imports if he is re-elected. This is a political chess game, and the stakes couldn't be higher. As both candidates try to outdo each other in their stance on China, the real question is, will these tariffs do more harm than good to American consumers? Global response: is China's EV market doomed? The U.S. isn't the only one turning up the heat on China. The European Union and Canada have also announced similar tariffs on Chinese EVs, signaling a global shift against Chinese dominance in the electric vehicle market. This coordinated effort could seriously damage China's EV companies, including Li Auto, Niao, and Xpeng XPEV, which have enjoyed rapid growth in recent years. With the combined weight of tariffs from the US, EU, and Canada, Chinese EV companies could find themselves cut off from key markets, significantly reducing their global market share. Are EV stocks still a buy? With all this uncertainty swirling around the EV market, you might be wondering, is now the right time to invest in EV stocks? Using TipRanks Stock Comparison tool, we filtered the best EV stocks that have earned a strong buy or moderate buy rating from Wall Street analysts. Based on their findings, some EV stocks are still considered a solid investment despite the headwinds from these new tariffs. But make no mistake, investing in the EV sector has never been riskier. So what happens now? Will these tariffs lead to a full-blown trade war? Will they force China to reconsider its state-driven economic policies? One thing is for sure, this isn't the end of the story. With both the US and China digging in their heels, the stakes couldn't be higher for the future of global trade, and especially the electric vehicle market. Make sure to like and subscribe for more updates on this ongoing economic battle. And don't miss out on our next video, where we'll be diving deeper into the fallout from these new tariffs. Stay tuned.